Dignity. One's dignity may be assaulted, vandalized, and cruelly mocked, but it can never be taken away unless it is surrendered. Michael J. Fox. Dignity entails self-respect. It means being worthy of esteem, and this latter implies behavior and action that is honorable and respectable. In the entry on decorum, for example, the young woman who appeared at the White House to greet the President of the United States clad in flip-flops did not display dignity. They clearly did not seem to grasp the meaning of self-respect or of behavior appropriate for the occasion. Dignity is a sentiment that is personally experienced and displayed. It cannot be granted as a prize for good behavior. The good behavior itself is a manifestation of dignity. Thus, it also cannot be taken away. Not long ago, I had chosen to be at a rehab center at a time when the usual activities of the mornings were underway. I noticed an elderly man seated in a wheelchair whose blanket had slipped from his lap, exposing him. As he was unable to retrieve it, he became agitated until a nurse picked it up impatiently and replaced it on his lap. I felt embarrassed for him. His dignity had not been violated in this act. Hers had. She did not put forth warmth and respect for this gentleman in his inability to care for himself, and her rudeness was not lost on me, though it may well have been absent from her own consciousness. If one behaves well and appropriately in all situations, one is not plagued by feelings of self-doubt. One can feel proud, well, and tall in dignity. Dignity is self-respect, self-love in its purest sense. Diligence. What we hope ever to do with ease, we must first learn to do with diligence. Samuel Johnson. Diligence means application, nose to the grindstone, concerted effort. If we are assigned to review a book, diligence demands that we read the book and prepare a solid report. It is only through making an effort in the direction of our goals that those goals can be achieved. It is true that some goals are nebulous and extend so far into the future that they seem unreachable. Diligence demands that we not abandon our goal when the drudgery seems unbearable. Diligence is the tenacious, persistent force applied to any undertaking, from study to tilling the soil, from writing a song to caring for the aged. It is the steady and energetic application of one's resources to any given task. Discernment. Discernment is the son of good judgment and the father of self-control. When mixed with an already clear conscience, the ability to read the true motives of a critic keeps one's conscience both clear and at ease. Chris Jamie. Discernment is a judgment about a person, a situation that is very finely tuned in terms of the subtleties that person or situation may present. Such judgment may be called upon when one reads a seething criticism and chooses not to respond, or if one happens upon some money in the street. It is judgment and discernment that determine whether to hand it over to the police or simply consider oneself fortunate. Discernment and good judgment go a long way in dictating what battles are worth the good fight. Judgment determines to what lengths one should self-sacrifice for the sake of another. Such ethical questions often spring up where the answers are not so easily seen, as in the shipwreck of a family and the question of whom to save. Discernment is practicing judgment, looking forward to potential outcomes. It is subtle and bathed in soft pastels. It is one's heart that can be consulted, and the consequences relegated to the best of one's intentions. Discipline. Self-respect is the root of discipline. The sense of dignity grows with the ability to say no to oneself. Abraham Joshua Heschel. How often have you resented and fought keeping your word of getting up at the crack of dawn to engage in an exercise program? How many times have you regretted the day you swore off chocolate chip cookies? What about when you enrolled in law school, that horrific travail of impossible reading assignments and insulting professors? Have you questioned your decisions, threatened to walk away, promised to never let yourself get fat again, or any combination of these? Discipline is a pitiless master. Discipline comes walking behind you with a whip precisely at those times when you are weakest. It demands compliance, demands performance. It tests your mettle, and if you rally to the call, it will be your own self-respect and dignity that will win out. Eloquence. Surely silence can sometimes be the most eloquent reply. Hazrat Ali ibn Abu Talib, A.S. We live in a society that seems to hold good communication as the emblem of great leaders, CEOs, preachers, and do-gooders. Yet communication is almost universally thought of in terms of words and their spoken expression. Communication is so much more encompassing, however. The human ability to express thoughts through words surely separates us from the lower creatures, but words are not the only form of communication. Indeed, those creatures not endowed with this ability still manage to communicate, at times quite eloquently. Eloquence is an art. Eloquence is the ability to convey thoughts, intentions, and deep emotion by various means, including the silent pause. Eloquence incorporates several aspects of communication, not the least of which are tact, diplomacy, and sensitivity. Silence itself can speak volumes. Empathy. Resolve to be tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, and tolerant with the weak and wrong. Sometime in your life you will have been all of these. Gautama Buddha. Can you imagine how a person would feel if he finds his name on social media with derogatory comments about him? Or the high school student who was ridiculed and taunted by her classmates on Facebook? Can you relate to the image of the forlorn, mishandled puppy or kitten shown on TV in ads about the SPCA? What about the horrible conditions that refugees live in when escaping their warring nations? Any soul-wrenching reaction is empathy toward another. It is feeling for another. It is putting yourself in another's place and imagining those conditions upon yourself. Empathy motivates us to treat people gently, to try to relieve their pain or avert their discomfort. A crying child, an elderly person, the sick, the infirm, even animals stir in us feelings that we imagine as our own. We are all interconnected. Endurance. This too shall pass. Hakim Sinai. Forbearance, patience, tolerance. Every discomfort passes, from the stamina required to stick to an exercise program or a diet to the patience demanded when caring for a loved one. The hunger pangs and cravings we may feel, to the sore muscles crying for relief, everything eventually passes. Life moves on relentlessly with its ups and downs, its triumphs and failures, its storms and romances, its flows and meanders, sometimes rushing downstream, at times sublime, oftentimes tumultuous, and each step is to be cherished. Enthusiasm. It's faith in something and enthusiasm for something that makes a life worth living. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Sr. To do anything half-heartedly is a waste of time. When you make love, are you enthusiastic? How about your work or study? If you apply your full attention to the task, something magical happens. It's called happiness. Nothing is as engrossing and invigorating as a task done full out, at 100% effort, for its own sake, without thought of further reward. Curiously, the rewards for such involvement are many, from a feeling of accomplishment to pride and self-esteem to the respect of oneself and others. Ethics. I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies, for the hardest victory is over self. Aristotle. Akin to a sense of morals, ethics is a more inclusive concept. Morality refers to personal behavior, while ethics is a social system where such behavior can be applied. Ethical is the prosecutor who works to acquit the wrongly convicted person rather than worry about his standing in the community or his win rate. Ethics demands that the good of the many be done, as in assuaging the rage of the people because of the abuse of some priests, and in bringing those priests to justice rather than covering up their acts. Ethics means standing for what one believes as a worthy cause. The president of the Ukraine, pilfering billions of dollars from the coffers of his country for personal enrichment, is flouting ethics with a lack of a moral backbone. There are too many examples of what violates ethical standards, but what supports them include the golden rule in action, or the abstinence of action if it means the selfish advancement of another.